Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Talking Villanova Football with Mark Ferrante, live at the Green Turtle Sports Bar and Grill in East Norton. I'm Steve Pannone, joined by Coach Ferrante. Coach, as we were talking before we came out here, one thing I didn't think I'd say to you, if you score 35 points, I didn't think you'd lose a game this year, but Towson comes in, wins the ball game 45-35. Let's go with the first half. We'll start there and talk a little bit about the ball game.
Okay, yeah, Steve, really physical game. You know, Towson came in and we came out of the gate. We started off pretty quick. We got up 14-0 in our first two possessions with only about 5 minutes off the clock. So guys came out of the tunnel really excited and enthused, and we put the ball in the end zone a couple times. And then Towson had a pretty good drive to go to 14-7. And then we had a play where there was a stop. We stopped them and sacked their quarterback, but then we got called for a late hit on the quarterback, unfortunately, and that gave them a first down. And then we held them to a third down on that very next series, and they had about a 3rd and 5 to go. They hit a quick slant, which if we tackle them, it's going to be 1st and 10, but they're still only about at their own 30-yard line, somewhere around there. But instead, we didn't knock him to the ground, and he went 76 yards for a touchdown. And then the next kickoff, their guy came down, and you know, we missed a block, and the guy came down and hit our returner, and the ball came out, and they scooped and scored. So we went from 14-7, and they were going to be punting from their end zone to all of a sudden 21-14. And then it snowballed, so you could see a huge momentum change. You know, it was a lot of ebb and flow in this game. This is one of those CAA football games where there's two heavyweights just battling back and forth, you know, and they got up to 35-14. And then to our guys' credit, we put together a nice 2-minute drive just before the half, and the halftime score was 35-21. But it was one of those heavyweight slugfests. You know, you and I are old enough to know the, you know, Ali, Frazier, and the Hagler, Hearns, and those types of contexts. And that's kind of what it was. It was two heavyweights going at it and just punching each other back and forth. And it was just a big physical game. And 35-21 at the half is, you know, how it ended there.
You talked a little bit about, you know, defensively it was I'm hoping an aberration, but we have not seen that in your 2 years as a head coach. Defensively, you guys struggled a little bit. Was it scheme a little bit, mixed assignments, just poor tackling, all of the above? After you broke down the film, what did you see from that first half? If you
look at last year, right, I mean, the only team that put 35 points up on us was Lehigh, and we won that game 38-35. So if we'd have put 35 points on the board offensively the rest of the year last year, we would have went undefeated, which is kind of crazy to think about. But it was a combination of things. Let's give credit where credit is due. Coach Ambrose and the Towson Tigers and their staff and their players, they came in and they were ready to play. Not that we weren't ready to play. I think both teams came out of the tunnel ready to go, and you know, they made plays. We missed a few. We did miss some tackles, probably more than we would like to miss. You know, but give credit to some of their athletes. They have good players too, you know, and their quarterback was able to extend plays. Tommy Flacco, he got the ball out quick in some instances, so you know, your rush wouldn't be a factor because the ball's coming out so quick. And then there's other times where we did get some pressure on him, and he was able to escape the pressure, kind of like our guy, kind of like Zach. Zach had as a similar athlete, you know, look at what Zach did when he scrambled in the Temple game. Look what he did when he scrambled and delivered the ball downfield in the Lehigh game. So Flacco and Zach both had career best games, and Jawan Lawson up there, Rhode Island, had a career best game. So there's three really good quarterback performances all in the same day. And you know, had we won the game, Zach probably would have been the CAA Offensive Player of the Week. Instead, Towson won the game, so Tommy Flacco, along with the guy at Rhode Island, they were offensive players of the game. And I've seen co-players before, but I've never seen co-players in the same game. You know what I mean? We're not going to have Tommy and Zach as co-offensive players when one won and one lost.
Yeah, and you mentioned Flacco. What I didn't realize from looking at stats, he was pretty good. I mean, he was a dual-threat quarterback when he needed to put his head down and make a first down. He was able to put the ball, tuck it in, and run the ball really well. It's a big win. You get 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, you think you have him pinned, and he was able to break with some big first downs.
Yeah, he made some really nice plays, and you know, sometimes it just happens that way. You know, that's why the ball's shaped a funny way and it bounces a funny way. And the other play that I just looked at and I said, you know, it's just not going our way was that one where he was not really paying attention. The snap goes by him by about 15 yards. But he kept his composure, and he was resilient enough. He chased the ball down while everyone's chasing along with him, and he scoops the ball up. And instead of just falling on the ball or getting tackled for a big loss in 2nd and 20, 2nd and 25, he completed a pass, and it became 2nd and 9. So, you know, when those types of things happen, it's just, okay, they got that one. You know, there's some luck involved from time to time. But, you know, sometimes when you're playing well and you're performing well, and you create some of that luck for yourself also. And Tommy did that a number of times.
All right, Coach, we'll take a quick break now. We'll come back and talk a little bit about the second half when we return. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Villanova football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Coach, we kind of dissected that first half there. You guys go into the halftime down 35-21. You know, you're down 35-14. You mentioned you fight your way back, you get it to 7, and you get the ball at one point. So talk about your resiliency of your team in the second half.
Yeah, we talked to the guys in the locker room at halftime, and, you know, the concept there was just stay together, and, you know, we'll battle back. We'll make some plays if you go out there and, you know, just execute the base fundamentals of what we're trying to do. And to our team's credit, you know, they were resilient as well, and, you know, they kept battling back and never gave up. And in the opening drive, we actually got an interception, which gave us a short field, right about midfield, maybe our own 45, somewhere around there. And then the offense took it in and scored, so it became 35-28. But then again, back to that heavyweight fight back and forth, Towson responded, and they got the next score, so they got up again. And then with 8 minutes to go in the game, we got back to 42-35. So, you know, now it's a 7-point game again, and there's about 8:15 or so on the clock, and we're like, okay, we get a stop here. We might have a chance to go down, tie it up. If we take this thing into overtime, who knows, right? Sure. And back to Towson, giving them credit, they were able to go on about a 5.5-minute drive, somewhere around there, and got the field goal. So now they have the 10-point cushion. It's about 3 minutes to play when we got the ball back. We moved it a little bit, got a couple first downs, but we ended up having a 4th and 2 situation. And to their defensive end's credit, he made a really nice play on a read play, and they got the ball back, and I think there was only 50 seconds to go or something like that at that time, and they were able to knee it out and win the game. So, you know, we're still in a good position. You look around the league, Rhode Island's probably in the best spot right now at 2-0 in the league, but 2-1 overall. A lot of us are 2-1 overall, and there's a lot of league games to be played yet. So we have to, get prepared and bounce back. And we had a good morning of practice today. Guys came out and did a nice job, showed up with a good focused attitude, and now we just have to build each day and be ready to execute at a high level on Saturday.
Coach, we've talked a lot about the maturity of your team. We're going to have one of your seniors come up. Ethan Green is going to come up and join us after the next break. But, it's kind of when everything's going well and you beat a Temple and then you play well against Lehigh, everything's going well. Everyone's kind of all on board. But when you have a stumble and you play a really good Towson team who plays well against you, now's where you really rely on your guys because you had a little bump in the road. And, hey, guys, you talk about today's practice. We need you guys. Hey, we've got to step it up. It's week 4. Let's go.
Someone asked me that earlier today, right? What type of team do you have and all that? And my response to that was, we'll find out this week. Things were going really well. We won the first game, won the second game. We hit a little adversity this week, had a really hard-fought game. And now, going into week 4, I think the demeanor of our team will present itself. We have good leadership. I like this team a lot. We have good talent, obviously, but it goes beyond talent. What type of attitude are we going to bring to the field this week and to practice throughout the week? And we talked about that today. It's a matter of getting back to the basics, getting back to the fundamentals, making sure we can execute those things at a more consistent level, and the rest of it will take care of itself. So we had a good approach today. The guys came in really focused. We had a good practice this morning, and then each day we just have to get better and build off that. But we'll see how we come out of the tunnel this week and how we perform. And I think that will show the leadership, the maturity, the chemistry, the tightness, the togetherness of this team, if we have it or not.
Yeah, and you hope that you talk about what you're hoping for this group, and you find out a little bit about them this week. Talk about as a coaching staff, as you guys break down the film on Sunday, some things you want to see from your units that maybe you didn't see this past Saturday. Let's start offensively.
Well, it's hard to say. I'd like to see us run the ball a little better. And really, the biggest thing on both sides, whether it's offense or defense, is we didn't do great on third down.
Okay.
We didn't get them off the field. And part of that is, what is their third down yardage? Are they doing well enough on first and second down so it's third and short so they're very makeable? Or can we get them behind schedule and make it third and long to make it, a little harder? And same with us on the other side. Can we do well on first and second down to have those third and makeables? Or are we going third and double digits all the time, third and 10, third and 12, And unfortunately, we had a little bit, and we had a Lehigh too a little bit as well on the offensive side. A couple third and longs, they're harder to make. And then this past week, we had both. We didn't convert on third down enough on offense, or consistently enough, and we didn't stop them on third down on defense. So that's probably a big area of improvement that we'd like to see this week coming up. And then back to a more balanced attack. We had 389 yards passing, which is Zach's career high, and we only had a little more than 100 rushing. We'd like to balance that out a little more.
And a little bit of that is getting behind in the game. I guess it forces you guys to throw a little bit more than you want to get you that balance.
And back to Towson's credit, they ran 90 plays to our 60. They had the ball for 8 more minutes. And even with that being said, when you looked at the yardage both teams put up, they only had 35 more total yards than we did, with 30 more plays and 8 more minutes of possession.
And you talk about a game. Sometimes it's a play here. If it's the kickoff, obviously the scoop and score for them. You take that out, it's a 3-point game with 5 minutes to go. They made the big play in special teams in this game, and that kind of gave them enough cushion to pull it out in the end.
Huge momentum swing, takes a lot of wind out of your sails. But to our guys' credit, we regrouped at halftime and we came battling back. That could have been so devastating that it ended right there, but it didn't. Our guys battled back. We got that one just before halftime, which was a really nice drive and about 4 plays getting down the field. Like I said, a 2-minute drive situation. And then, the second half, we scored first. We started out well, and every time we got close, they did have an answer, unfortunately. And, like I said, 12-round fight. They got 7 scores. We got 5. 7's going to beat 5 every time. So TKO Towson.
Good morning. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with senior offensive lineman Ethan Greenidge right after this. This is Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. We're joined by senior offensive lineman Ethan Greenidge. Coach, before you took over the program as the head coach, you were the offensive line coach. Ethan, well, obviously, was one of your position players. Talk a little bit about that evolution. You go from kind of his position coach, obviously, to his head coach.
Right. Well, first in recruiting, Ethan came to our summer camp in between his junior year going into his senior in high school, and he performed well. He was about 315 or so pounds at the time going into his senior year, and he was real athletic, really light on his feet, so we evaluated him to camp. Now these camps are non-padded, so you just see the athleticism and agility and flexibility and the coachability. You don't see the physicality of football. So Ethan came to the camp, and I remember talking with he and his dad right after the camp, and I said, hey, I really like a lot of stuff you're doing, but send us some football film so we can see the physical side of things. And then, in typical offensive/defensive line fashion, he had a couple really good games early on in his senior year, and I'm looking for the physical stuff, right? And the first clip he puts on his highlight film, he scoops up a fumble and runs it in for a touchdown. So I'm like, what the heck? But Ethan's been great. He's been starting as soon as he got here. So he's a 4-year senior, not a redshirt senior, and started 2 years at right tackle and 2 years at left tackle. Also played high school basketball and did some high school track. So an all-around athlete. And we're real pleased and happy. He's a young guy for his class. He just turned 21 2 Mondays ago.
Wow.
So, didn't turn 18 until he came here at Villanova in the first start.
Yeah. First start, I was 17. And obviously going against like 21, 22-year-olds, it was definitely a culture change. But I got used to it after a while.
Right.
But yeah, it was definitely an experience, 100%.
And he's played 2 years at right, as I said, 2 years at left tackle now for us. And Ethan's a guy, his size and his athleticism and things, he's getting a lot of attention from the next level guys. The scouts, we have scouts at practice just about every day. The Cardinals were in today, and we had a few last week and so on. So Ethan has potentially an opportunity to play beyond Villanova, kind of like our call-in guy last week.
Pretty good last night.
Austin called in last week on the show and got his first NFL start last night with the Seahawks.
So Ethan, I'm going to, if I get this right, so you replaced Brad Seaton, speaking of NFL.
To the left side.
To the left side. Talk about what's the biggest adjustment going from right tackle to left tackle?
It's like, to me, it's kind of like switching, like writing with your right hand and writing with your left hand in a way. It's like the footwork's kind of, it's more of the same thing, but you got to kind of just do opposite of what you're doing before. So like your right foot's up and you're kick stepping with your left instead of the opposite way around. It took me a game or two, because obviously in practice you can do as good as you want. But like there's nothing like game like speed and like getting used to that. So it took like a game or two to get used to that. And then I started adjusting to it as well. And then I still have some technical issues myself. There's always like O-line, you can always work and always get better and stuff like that. So I just say like the footwork about it is a little different, but it's more the same.
And Coach Ethan's a huge student of the game. A lot of times as coaches, we have to try to encourage the guys to watch more film on their own, because we're only allowed to spend so much time with them. But if you want to be really great, you're going to do what we ask you to do plus more. And Ethan came in as a freshman, and I've never seen a young offensive lineman, because that's a position I coach, but even our quarterbacks, he probably watches more film than our quarterbacks, and he did that on his own. I didn't have to convince him that. You mentioned Brad Seaton, we mentioned Tano and those guys. It took me about 2 years to convince Brad, hey, it's a good thing to watch film on your own. Ethan does it all the time. He's in our office all the time, one of the side positional rooms watching film, and you love that part of it. You love the preparation, you love the study, and the review of your opponent.
Yeah, because I like football's such a mental game to me. I feel like if you can prepare, you get more comfortable, and if you're more comfortable, you can play just even faster. So I noticed that from my freshman year coming in. Like obviously in high school, you don't have accessibility to watching film as much. You have huddles and stuff like that, but it's not the same. But like we recorded every practice, and I thought that was amazing to me. So I can watch myself in practice preparing for the game. And I just figured like after my couple classes, I'll go in, and I just made it a habit and just took it off from there. It definitely helped my game, and I think it helps me now.
It's great. Let's talk about that breakdown now. How much of that time you spend watching film is your own technique, and how much is time spent against your opponent for this coming weekend?
I would say usually I basically commit camp to my own technique. Like, because obviously we're not playing anybody in camp, and it's about 2 to 3 weeks. So I really try to hone in on my own skills, because obviously making myself better helps the team. So I try to make sure I know like my feet are right, my technique is right. Then when we go into game week, I'll probably watch a couple plays on myself just to make sure I'm keeping it up. And then it's completely committed to what the defense is doing as a whole. It's not just the person I'm going up against; it's the whole defense. We were like Coach Ferrante taught us that early years, but Coach Devine now he emphasizes on that. Like, what is the whole defense doing as a whole? Because if you read the whole defense, it'll tell you what your man is doing right there. So it makes it a lot easier.
Because defensive linemen, they'll run stunts and bring linebackers, and obviously you have keys and reads that you need to make. It's not just the guy lining up against you on first and second down.
It's a much bigger picture than that, and it just tells you everything.
And you can pick up little tells. You know what I mean? You can pick up things. Okay, why is he lined up there? You know, as opposed to where he normally is. Well, the linebacker's lined up there because that guy who's on my outside shoulder is going to go inside, and those types of things. And then on the flip side of that, the self-study is important too, because they're watching him. So is his stance different? Is he in a 2-point stance versus a 3-point stance on this play versus that play, or what's the situation? So you got to make sure you're honing your technique so you're not giving tells.
It's funny how you say that, because I'm watching a game this weekend, and Chris Spielman, the Hall of Fame linebacker for the Lions over the years, he's watching an offensive tackle who's got his head pointed in towards the center, and he's pulling it out every time it was a pass play. And he was that technical. I mean, as you guys as players and coaches see it, but how technical you guys break this thing down to find any little key that you can, hey, this is going to be a pass or a run. Defensive linemen are looking for.
Exactly right. And, you know, those D linemen, they're looking for how heavy is he on his hand? How light is he on his hand? Is he on his heels? Is he up on his toes? You know, those types of things. And, you know, you can pick those things up if you want to do the self-study and watch enough film on your own. Because a lot of times in the meeting with the coaches, it's, what are we doing? Here's our scheme. Here's our plays. Here's our protections. Here's what we have to cover. So you don't spend as much time on the self-evaluation / self-study or independent study of the guy lined up across me. It's more of the big picture approach.
100%.
Ethan, we got a chance to talk to Coach and his philosophy, you know, coming off a tough loss to Towson. As a senior leader, and so what's the locker room been like? How did you guys respond after the game Saturday, and as you've gotten together now here as we get to Tuesday night?
Yeah, obviously it was a tough loss and everything. We don't take any loss for granted or anything like that, but I think I'm kind of in the perspective of, like, you can always learn something. Like, you never really lose. You either learn or you win, in my eyes. So I feel like as a locker room, we really want to take that, and we're going to definitely go off of that. We had some obviously offensive mistakes, defensive mistakes. That's every game. Like, Coach always tells us, like, it really never goes as planned. But you just got to go out there and play as hard as you can, as fast as you can, and do what you got to do. So I definitely had a little motivation, obviously coming off a loss, just to get back on our feet and get ready for the rest of the season. But definitely we can't look past these guys and really do what we got to do.
And you got one left in the non-league, which we'll talk about Bucknell as we move forward. And then it's CAA to finish it out, 7 strong CAA games. I guess you talk about the difference. You come in as a freshman, and coaches, you start game one. Now as a senior, what characteristic in yourself have you seen the most improvement in?
Myself, I would definitely say my physicality has improved from a long way. Coach Ferrante used to, back in the day, he used to get on me about like being like I wouldn't like finish guys and stuff like that. It just wasn't like it wasn't natural to me. It was kind of like, I don't know how to really explain it, but like I guess the way I was raised up.
Well, hearing him talk, he's too nice a kid, right?
You want me to explain it?
Yeah.
He's too nice a guy, right?
Well, here's the thing, you know, and just think about a guy his size, but he's always this size. So think about a big guy in kindergarten or first grade, and the kids go out for recess in the playground. What's the first thing people are saying to the bigger guy, to everybody else? Be careful. Don't pick on Johnny and all that. So I think that's part of the upbringing, and you know, Ethan's definitely improved in that category. You know, they want to see you finish your blocks. You know, Ethan possesses the ability to be dominant at this level. We're fortunate to have him, to be honest with you. And you know, the recruitment, I don't know why. You know, he's located way out on Long Island, out in Riverhead, Long Island. So maybe some of the bigger schools didn't go out that far. Tony Trisciani was our recruiter at the time, who's now Elon's defensive coordinator, and Tony went out that far. I didn't go out that far. As the positional coach, Tony said, would you like to come evaluate Ethan playing basketball? I said, yeah, I'd love to. Give me his away schedule and let me see which one's the closest to Villanova, and that's the one I'll go to. So I never went to his home or never went to his school. I went and saw Ethan and his family, you know, away from their home and their school. It was about 45 minutes closer for my drive. But, you know, and recruiting is so much earlier now. Like, we were fortunate enough to have him at our camp going into his senior year, where maybe some of the bigger schools were just going off of junior film.
Yeah.
And they didn't get the opportunity to see him in person like we did. So that really benefited us. And then, you know, that's how we ended up having Ethan attend our program, which we're really excited about.
Well, Ethan, thanks for joining. It's been a pleasure to watch you over these 4 years. I know you guys are going to finish up strong. We're going to take our quick break here. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Coach Easton did a great job, and I could see how he's such a big part of your program. His just bubbly personality and attitude was outstanding. But now we got somebody who's kind of the rock star of the program.
No doubt. No doubt.
We're joined by Father Rob Hagan. His 16th year, Father. When I read that today, I was shocked at how long you've been here.
Can't believe it.
Yeah, Senior Associate Athletic Director, and also for Student Athlete Welfare, which we'll talk about what that means and what it oversees. But obviously, we've seen a lot of him as the chaplain for the football program and also the men's basketball program. Welcome, Father.
Nice to be here, really.
Yeah,
really.
No, Father Rob is awesome. He travels with our team. He travels with basketball. You always see him at the end of their bench. And, you know, he travels with us and everything. And the first thing we'll talk about, right, Father Rob is the originator, not originator, but originator for our program of the Tap the Rock. Tap the Rock is our motto. And I'll let Father Rob explain really what it means and what it truly means and where it came from.
Well, you know, as preacher, you're always looking to throw things against the wall and see what sticks, you know. So I definitely didn't invent the parable of the stonecutter, and It's something that basketball had used for a while. And we passed these metaphors around. And when we used it with football, it was probably back in like 2009. We talked about, the old stonecutter goes out 2,000 years ago without any power tools, and he doesn't have a drill or a jackhammer or anything. He's got just his hammer and his brothers, and his job is to break the rock. And he taps on the rock and taps on the rock, and it doesn't break. And he wakes up in the morning and taps on the rock and taps on the rock all day, all night, doesn't break. And he keeps tapping and tapping and tapping until one day it breaks. Right. And it's kind of a metaphor of faith, because it wasn't the last tap on the rock that caused the rock to break, but all the many thousands that went before. And I think, whether it's football or basketball or sports or academics or life in general, you know, that whole idea of persevering, keeping the faith, not giving up. Maybe it didn't happen the first time. Maybe it didn't happen the second time. Maybe it hadn't happened in a while. But the whole notion of believing.
Right.
And when you're in the company of a bunch of believers like we have as student athletes and as Augustinians and alum, you know, we've seen at Villanova. You keep tapping at that rock, you can really accomplish some big things with that kind of faith.
Right. And I remember when Father Rob first gave that to the team, you know, and most of Father Rob's talks with our team and sermons with our team have exactly to do with persevering and hanging in there and the never quit attitude and all those things. But that one just seemed to hit home because after that, and ironically enough, the next game was going to be against Towson. But the week before is when Father Rob shared that with our team, and players were talking about it, you know, and our coaches were talking about it. And then we had an away game the very next week, and it was at Towson. And we come in that morning to Father Rob's service before we go to our pregame meal, and on the back table was a rock. And so now we have a symbol of the message that was the year before, and now that rock still is in our locker room to this day. Our guys walk in out for practice and for games, and every time they walk in and walk out, they tap the rock. So now there's a visual reminder of persevering, grinding, put your nose to the grindstone, and just keep going no matter what adversity is in front of you. And you know, hopefully we take that mentality into this week's preparation for our game upcoming this Saturday.
Father, I've been blessed in a way where I've had an opportunity to be around you when you talk to the team before games in both football and basketball. I guess, and what amazes me is your ability to kind of always seem to hit the right chord, the right message for a team coming off a big win, a team coming off a tough loss, a team taking on a big challenge, small challenge. Share a little bit your thought process as you prepare to you get a group of 100 kids this Saturday. You're getting ready to play Buck now. Don't give away the story yet, but like talk about your thought process as you prepare your speech for that group on Saturday.
Well, as you know, I'm not just showing up there. So I'm blessed. I work in the department. And so this is a population of student athletes I interact with every day. And so, you come across these young men and women every day. You start to identify with some of their struggles, some of the things they're going through. What's going on in class this week? What what happened in the game. You know what else is going on in the world, and then what you try to do is try to connect that good word to what's going on in their life. And so we all know what happened on the field on Saturday. Right. We all know the things that they're going through in practice and some of the struggles that they have in the classroom. And then the next week rolls around and you find a scripture passage pops up, and then you say, well, how can we connect this to what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish? So sometimes it's kind of sitting there right in front of you. And
there's only one unfortunate thing about it, because sometimes when Father Rob's done delivering his message, I wish we could go right to the field. But it's like 4 hours before game time, you know what I mean? And he puts pressure on me because I'm like, how can I top that when I have to address the team when we are taking the field? Because sometimes I'm like walking out like, I'm ready to go. Yeah. Father Rob just gave the pregame speech, and I think we're ready to go out and start playing right now.
Well, it was actually you in 2009, because we talked about Tap the Rock, and after that mass, he and a couple of assistant coaches came up and said, "We need a rock."
Right. We talked about it. We definitely talked about it. And,
but that visualization for the program it's been kind of the cornerstone. Bad analogy or a good analogy, I guess, is the cornerstone of your program.
No doubt, no doubt. And everyone has it. People do it different ways, and that's just the one that we've adopted. And some of Father Rob's other sermons really have to do with the same thing. The fig tree. The fig tree one that you've used with the guys. We had one player, Jacob Wade, if you remember, that really hit home with him, and he brought that up one day in a game when he made a great play, and those types of things. So Father Rob delivers great messages, and it's stuff that our guys carry with them. For instance, Matt Caesar has a small rock that he keeps in his baseball locker. when he was with the Cubs, and obviously to this day he's with the Padres. So it hits home with a lot of people, and it doesn't end when they're done with us. It's stuff that they talk about all the time, and when guys come back, they talk about it. When guys call me on the phone or text me or message me, they bring up Tap the Rock and so on. So it's something that carries you beyond football. It's just, hey, have the perseverance through life, because there's going to be challenges and there's going to be adversity.
And Mark, you probably with Father Laser, who was your predecessor. he had one he always talked about was TOP. T-O-P. With talent, opportunity, and perseverance. Now, that I've been out a long time. We're getting old, but it's stuck with me. Every time I'm having a tough day, I always remember what he talked. Everyone's here. Your team is there because they have talent. You've given them the opportunity to be a Villanova. Now, can they persevere through wins and losses and tough days in the classroom, tough games when the girlfriend breaks up with you, and those kind of things that you deal with all the time. So it's your message is getting through, and it works.
Right. And I think it's a credit to the people that you recruit. I think you're bringing in people that are open to a mind, body, and spirit culture, so that there's we do what we do on Saturday. We do what we do with basketball before each game. And, it's not like we're trying to, hit kids over the head with the Bible, but we're just trying to remember that there's a spirit part of this, and you bring in people that are open to it, and the message resonates with people like that.
No doubt. And like you were saying, Steve, Father Laser brought that sermon up once a season for us, and you could see as soon as he starts talking about it, the upperclassmen who have heard it before sit up in their chair a little taller. They start smiling because they here it comes. And same thing with the Tap the Rock. When Father Rob brings that one to the table, the guys just all of a sudden it's just a little extra perk, because that's kind of what we've adopted.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Father Rob's going to stay with us for one more segment, so we look forward to that. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. We're joined by Senior Associate Athletic Director Father Rob Hagan. And Mark, we're talking about tapping the rock. And I think where Father does his best work, and I'll speak for myself because you may disagree, but is when you face some adversity. And your team faced some adversity on Saturday. And I guess, Father, talk about that perseverance point of we talked about, continuing to tap. Talk about that kind of sense of perseverance with this group?
Yeah, I don't think people realize. I mean, you look at them on the field and they're so big and strong, and you see them on TV, and it's like, they're 18 to 22-year-old kids. They're not pros yet. They're juggling a lot going on in their life, and they put so much into this, so I think part of it is us reminding them that they're not in it by themselves. That we got to pull together as a brotherhood. That they got coaches, and we're all in this together. No, we didn't lose that game because of one person, and the success we have isn't because of one person. And so, we've been thinking about next week already. And if you look at the way that game started out, we got off to such a good start. And then, things, it's kind of that whole message of following through and staying with it. And maybe you have some early success, but that doesn't mean that you're finished yet. Or maybe you have some early failure, and that doesn't mean you're finished yet. And so it's not just persevering, but persevering for the long haul. And that's something that I think that's what's great about sports. That's why I love being a part of this, because those lessons are learned.
No doubt.
And Father, I want to talk a little bit about your day job. Part of what you do is you oversee strength and conditioning. And we've talked about this on previous shows where the program went through a transition this summer. And just talk about your role in trying to help identify people, or Mark identifying people and bringing to you, and your role in just kind of overseeing the training room and strength and conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at me, it's not because I'm the strongest or the most conditioned. So it's not really that as much as, we make sure that first and foremost we're concerned about our health and safety and welfare of our student athletes, and that's whether that's working with Dr. Duncan or Lenny Currier or athletic trainers. And so it's a whole sports performance model that we're really working with. And then personnel is tricky. You're always trying to find the right fit, and sometimes you have somebody that's been here for a while and they move on, and then that's a key hire for replacement. And we have interns that help along the way, and I think the summer was challenging because we had to kind of go all hands on deck and get people to pitch in while we were searching for not just another body, but for the right fit. And we're very, very happy with the job that Mike Tucker's done so far. He came from Holy Cross. I think there's similar cultures in Holy Cross and Villanova, and then working with the whole student and athlete piece. But that was a challenge because people don't realize, our kids don't just show back up in September ready to play a football game. That there's a lot of conditioning and summer school and work that needs to happen so that they're really in the kind of shape that they need to be in for that first game.
And the hardest part this year, at least, was the timing of it.
Yeah.
Right? We had about 25 guys here in June, and so we had a couple interns running the program with a smaller group, and then the whole team shows up in July, and that's where we really needed to get a guy in place, and that's where Mike fit in for us and has done a good job. And the timing of it was probably the most challenging part, but I'm really excited. We had Mike on the first show. I'm really excited about what he's doing with our student athletes, and there's a good culture in that room right now. We hired a few other people they all seem to be working well together. The weight room is right connected to our football office complex, so I see a lot what's going on in there just because I'm there next to it all the time, and it's a nice culture right now, and I think all the student athletes are benefiting and all the programs are benefiting from the hires we've made.
Yeah, and culture is the big word. I mean, you look at ESPN, it seems like every other day there's a story about just a culture that isn't representative of what the university would want, and so that's a big part of it, that we really strive to make sure that we have people that are good examples, that are mentors, that the teachers aren't just the faculty and professors. I look at our coaches and our staff, really all teachers in a way in a university setting.
And you talk about football is a transient business. Certainly with assistant coaches, they don't stay in one place for a long time. There's they go from position coach maybe to coordinator, an opportunity at different levels. Villanova has always been different. Like, we're talking about guys who've been here 32 years, and I think of Sam Venuto and Brian Flynn have been long tenured guys. Joe Traynor was here a long time, had an opportunity, he's come back. So talk about the culture you as a head coach that you're trying to work with your assistant coaches, and obviously which a big part of that is your strength and conditioning coach.
Personally, and being here as long as I've been here, I think it's Villanova culture. I think it's the family atmosphere. It's the community involvement, because you don't just see it in athletics. You do see it in athletics, and we do have more stability in our program, I mean, Jay's 17 years. That's kind of unheard of.
Yeah, Harry Peretta.
At that level, Harry's been 40 years, you know. So, but you see it in the professors. You see it in the custodial staff. You see it in the food service department. I think the longest tenured employee is in dining services. I think he's been there 50 years, you know. And I think it's the culture and the community and the family involvement of Villanova that you feel, even though we're in athletics.
Yeah, I say this, I have 2 sons there at school. I'm blessed to have 2 kids at Villanova. I tell them, there's people here serving you food that served me food back in the mid-'80s, and they're still here working, and they'll come by and say hi to them. I say, yeah, he was here, or he or she was here when I was here.
Exactly right.
Kind of a shameless plug, but today is 1842 Day. And it's something that we really take pride in, that, we didn't just come up with this yesterday, that we really celebrate a tradition and a legacy that goes all the way back to, 4 Augustinians coming over from Ireland, and that charism and that foundation and those core values that we, people like you and Andy Talley and Jay Wright and Jeff Pierce, and you can think of so many people who've been here for a long time because they've kind of maintained that commitment to those core values, and then to see them want to pass it on to the next generation. I mean, that's really Villanova's story.
And look at this past weekend with St. Thomas of Villanova Community Service Day, Day of Service. We have approximately 6,700 undergraduates, and almost 5,000 of them went out into various communities this past Saturday giving back. And that's what Villanova is all about, and that speaks volumes, and I think that's why you have such stability in all phases of Villanova's community.
Well, Father, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. We look forward to seeing you Saturday out on the field against Bucknell. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back talking Villanova football with head coach Mark Ferrante right after this. Welcome back to Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Coach, one thing I always said about football is when you win, you get a whole week to enjoy it. And when you don't win, you got to have a whole week to get ready for your next one. So you got to wait all the way to Saturday to get another opportunity. And it'll be the Bucknell Bison come in. Struggle a little bit, 0-3 in the year, but week 1, a 14-7 loss to a CAA team, William & Mary, so obviously these guys are capable.
No doubt. That definitely opens our eyes whenever you see someone that plays someone in our conference and they play them close and play them tight and play them tough. That'll definitely get your attention. What I tell the guys after a win or a loss is you have 24 hours to either celebrate it or get over it, and then we're moving on to the next one. But you're right. You only get 11 of these opportunities guaranteed, and they're valuable. So you better come into practice and prepare real well. But for Bucknell, Joe Susan's been there a while. We're not super familiar with them because we haven't played them in a while. So as far as knowing some of their personnel, we know some of them because of where they're from a recruiting perspective and so on. But we haven't faced them. We haven't, gone up against any of the guys on this current team. So, but we do know Joe Susan, and what I know about Joe is he runs a very disciplined organization, and they'll be tough, and he'll have them prepared. I do know that, and we know some other guys on their staff. And, if you look at them offensively, they're going through some growing pains, I think, a little bit. They shuffled a couple quarterbacks in the first 3 games, and they're playing a young freshman running back. So they're trying to, identify themselves and what they're going to do offensively. They look to get the ball out quick in the passing game. They're trying to establish a running game. They'll move the pocket with the quarterback. I'm sure they'll look at our most recent game versus Towson and try to see what fits into their system and their scheme that maybe Towson did to us that might have given us some problems and so on. So we'll prepare for that. And then when you look at their defense, there is some similarities to their defense and our defense. They play a 3-down front, nose guard, 2 defensive ends. They do align their defensive ends the way we do, a lot of times on the inside shoulder of the tackles. And then they have 3 linebackers and a 5-spoke secondary. So they do a little more than we do as far as moving some of their personnel around. Their middle linebacker, number 7, I don't have all their names memorized as of right now, but watching film on him, number 7, he's kind of a do-everything guy. He's sometimes lined up as the middle linebacker, then he'll be standing up on one of the edges as a stand-up defensive end, and they'll push their tackle down to give you like a four-man front. There's times he'll walk up over the guard, from the middle linebacker position. So he's a real active guy. They're going to blitz, they're going to twist, they're going to move their people around. They'll bring some corner pressure and some outside linebacker pressure and things of that nature. So, we'll have our hands full schematically on offense trying to figure out where they're lining up and how they're lining up, and then what are they doing once they line up in that alignment. So, it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good challenge. It's Parents Weekend, Family Weekend, so we should have a great crowd. It's a 6 o'clock game, so something we haven't done yet. We had 2 early games. Last week it was a mid-afternoon game, and now this one's a 6 o'clock game. So that's just different preparation for our guys. They'll sleep in a little later. We'll have our pregame with Father Rob 4 hours before kickoff and do our Wildcat walk 2 hours before kickoff, so that'll be at 4 o'clock, and then we'll go from there. So, looking forward to the challenge, looking forward to getting back on the field and trying to, again, see how our team's going to react to last week's adversity.
And, Coach, I know you guys probably as coaches don't break it down this way. Here's an opportunity for you guys to go 3-0 non-conference, and then you finish up with 7 CAA games. So I guess, as fans and as kind of guys that watch the program, I know you guys can't do it that way, but an opportunity to go 3-0 non-conference.
Yeah, 3-0, any 3, I'll take 3 wins no matter how you get them out of 4, and then we'll go from there. So, our approach. We're 1 at a time, and, let's be 1-0 this week. And that's our approach, and that's always going to be our approach. So you can't get that. If you take care of the little things, the big things will generally happen. So the little things we got to take care of is, number 1, get better tomorrow, and then build it into the Saturday's game and hopefully come out and prepare at a high level to execute at a high level, and that's what we're looking for. So,
all right, Coach, we're going to take one last quick break, and then we'll be back to close out the show. It's Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Back with more after this on 610 ESPN. football head coach Mark Ferrante. Coach, we got about a minute left here, and I know you wanted to give a couple of shout-outs to some people real quick before we end it.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank the Green Turtle for having us here this year. This is our third show here, and the crowds have been awesome, and it's a great venue here. So real excited to be here, having them host us. And then to our left here, our immediate left, we have about 4 or 5 tables of people that come every week. So I want to thank those folks for coming every week. And then the furthest table to our left is our athletic department interns. So just give a quick shout out to our athletic department interns that are over there. And like I said, we really enjoyed this venue. It's been awesome so far, and looking forward to being back here next week.
Well, there's one young lady in the front you might want to mention specifically.
She always tells me not to.
That was Coach's wife, so I'll do it that way you don't get in trouble. But we appreciate it. We look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday for Talking Villanova Football with Coach Mark Ferrante right here at the Green Turtle Sports Bar and Grill in East Norton. That wraps up Talking Villanova Football with head coach Mark Ferrante. Thanks to Joe Gaines and studio engineer Ryan Lennox. This Saturday, the Cats face the Bucknell Bison. Game time is 6 o'clock. We'll be on the air with our pregame show at 5:45. And join us next Tuesday for another show of Talking Villanova Football. For head coach Mark Ferrante, this is Steve Pannone. Have a good night. This is 610 ESPN.